The following content is for informational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice.
Welcome to KC Wellness Talks. I'm Dr. Dawn Ipsen, pharmacist and your host. Join us as we delve into the world of healthcare with local providers, discussing common health concerns many face and exploring ways to overcome them. Whether it's simple tips from home remedies or the latest in treatment technologies, we've got you covered. Today, I am so excited to introduce to you our guest. This is Dr. Sam Lavis. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here today. I know you're a very busy schedule.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So Dr. Lavis is local here in Snohomish. He runs the Functional Health Solutions right down the street from us. We've had an opportunity over the last several years now to get to know each other a little bit better. Dr. Lavis was trained and got his degree at the Pacific Northwest University here in Washington State. We love local Washington people staying local. He's also board certified in family medicine and trained in functional medicine through the Institute for Functional Medicine. And again, it is just such a treat to have you here today. I love getting an opportunity to interview really local, I think famous and super important healthcare guests in our community. And why don't you start out and just tell us a little bit about your journey and how you've gotten to where you're at today.
Yep. So I've always been really into kind of health in general, and it's kind of my family, which is kind of interesting, is my parents were chiropractors, and my mom was kind of like, she was like a Maha mom before there were Maha moms.
Oh,
so
cool.
Always really into like health, and we always had the weird lunches, and we had weird smoothies in the morning, and we did my mom was always talking about pesticides and all the kind of environmental chemicals before it was kind of cool to talk about it, in like the 90s.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She's an early adopter, and so.
And where did you grow up at?
Spokane.
In Spokane.
In
Okay.
Spokane,
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're both chiropractors, so and they're chiropractic in general. They're kind of more on the alternative realm of things, and so I was always kind of interested in nutrition and kind of how food affected the body, and it was in sports. I was never the biggest or the best, but I worked really hard, and I always was looking for kind of ways to kind of level up and and to peak perform, and nutrition was just a big one.
Yeah.
And then when I was a junior in high school, or a junior in college, a junior in high school, I developed kind of like a sudden onset like vision issue. I was actually taking an AP bio test. All of a sudden I couldn't really read. Like I could see the letters, but I couldn't really read. I felt like something. So I went up to the front and I was like, "Hey, like there's something weird going on with my vision. I don't know what's going on, but I can't take this test right now."
Oh my gosh! Seriously?
Yeah. So I
wow.
So I called my mom. She I don't know if she took off work, but she came and picked me up right away. I went to an ophthalmologist who diagnosed me with some kind of weird neurological. It was like a cranial nerve palsy type of thing where my eyes just weren't able to focus super well. And so I started working with kind of a more alternative optometrist, and I got my vision to the point where I could read with glasses, but it was still really difficult, and I complained about it for years, and my mom probably got sick of me complaining about it when I was going through college. Yeah. And then my junior year of college, I had just finished a football season, and my mom was like, you should read this book called The Wheat Belly.
Oh, The Wheat Belly. I've heard of that.
Yeah, it was Dr. Davis, William Davis. I think he's a cardiologist. Yeah, I think. But anyways, he wrote this book, and I read it, and it was over Christmas break, and I was like, maybe I'll try cutting out gluten and see. I don't think it's my problem. I think I tolerate gluten just fine.
Right. You're like, I don't want to give up the bread, the pasta.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I go back to school that after winter break, and I cut out gluten, and I think I do it really solidly for 2 months, and my vision probably gets 30 or 40% better.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It was huge. And I was and I could tell every time I ate it, my vision got worse.
Wow.
And when I avoided it, my vision was better.
Wow.
And it really, the vision issue has been kind of it's a blessing and somewhat of a curse, because it's a guide for me. Is something good for me or bad for me? How does it affect my vision?
Even to this day.
It's like a North Star. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'll get into what I think I figured out what caused it probably in the last like year and a half.
Okay.
But continuing with the story, I was I'd cut out gluten. Things were getting better, and that was really when I started to kind of get into kind of the functional medicine world. Like I found Chris Kresser, I found Rob Wolf, I found Mark Hyman. I started reading books, and it was really, I just felt like, oh man, this is my thing. This is really awesome. This is a really fascinating area of kind of health and medicine in general, and it's just like very unconventional and quickly like. Functional medicine really is root cause medicine. So you can be a naturopath, or you can be an MD, or you can be a DO, or really anything. And you can practice functional medicine. Functional medicine is really just root cause medicine.
Root cause, okay.
So you try not to band-aid with symptoms, like, you know, some people will do herbs and supplements, some people will do medications and surgeries.
Yeah.
Functional medicine really tries, I mean, yes, we use some band-aids, but we are always trying to figure out what the root cause of the problem is.
Right.
So that the body is able to kind of like do its thing.
That makes sense.
And so I started reading a lot, and then I took a year between medical school and college. Medical school and college. And I was just kind of, I was really diving into functional medicine. And then I started my first year of medical school at Pacific Northwest, which is a DO school. Yeah. DO, I you know, when I was like originally like applying to it, I applied because I thought it aligned with functional medicine a lot better. It's you know, and really the tenets of the major, I don't know them word for word now anymore, but you know, you learn it when you're in DO school that, you know, really the body is like a self-healing unit, and the job of the doctor is to remove barriers towards healing and then let the body do its thing. That really is truly what functional medicine is. So I think the true osteopathic medicine and then true functional medicine are somewhat synonymous. But I get into medical school, and about 2 months in, I'm just like, oh geez, like what did I get myself into?
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and I was a little panicked because I had like $50,000 in debt already.
Yeah.
And I realized that this was like not like, you have a little bit of osteopathic training every week. You get like 3 hours of kind of what they call osteopathic principles in practice, and it really is kind of like functional. It's, you don't really learn functional medicine, but you kind of learn the philosophy behind it. Okay. Which is like the body is able to heal itself. It's the job of the doctor to remove barriers that are preventing the body from being healed. Right. But then you go into these traditional classes like pharmacology and all these things, which are very traditional medicine, and it's like, here's the disease, here's the pill, match them. Right. And so I was pretty disheartened, and I was like, oh my God, like, and one, I'm working just like, 16, 17 hours a day. I'm like hardly sleeping. Yeah. I feel like I'm about to have a psychotic break. Right. Yeah. And I come across, there's a doctor actually at my school, who was very unconventional. His name was Dr. Powell. Okay. And he actually was starting the IFM training. So really? He right here in Washington State. Yeah, he was at PNW. He was starting the IFM training, and he did a little lecture about it, and I was like, you know what, this is what I need to do. Yeah. So after my first year of medical school, I went to the first AFMCP. Okay. Which is like the intro course for functional medicine. It's like 5 days of like 10-hour days, and you just like learn a ton. Right. And yeah, it was kind of off to the races from there. That's amazing. I kind of the even more of the story is like I got really into functional medicine, and then I started residency, and it's very traditional medicine again. It's it's like a pill for every ill, and it's 15-minute visits. It's not what I envisioned myself doing for the rest of my life, for sure. Yeah. And I wanted to somewhat. I knew I wanted to get out. I knew I wanted to do functional medicine. I didn't know what route I wanted to go, and then I had another mentor who practiced very traditional medicine. His name is Dr. Baker. He's actually has a direct primary care in Vancouver. Okay. But he was working in my residency, but he was starting his own direct primary care. So he was kind of doing both. And then after my first year, he split off completely and just went direct primary care. And I spent a lot of time, or not a lot of time with him, but a couple weeks with him on electives. And I saw that he was doing a form of care that was really unique. Yeah. It was a membership-based model, and he spent an hour with new patients, and an hour to an hour and a half, and then he did an hour with follow-ups. Yeah. Or half an hour to an hour with follow-ups, and I saw kind of both. I was like, these two worlds collide perfectly, and so then I opened up a direct primary care that really focused on functional medicine. Yeah. That's really incredible. Long and short of it. Yeah, and it's sort of one of those things too, where like, I have older kiddos, and you tell them make plans, but it's also like you have to be okay with plan shifting, and the universe kind of like saying,
no, not really, but yeah, kind of, and go this way and slip over here, and like just how people came into your journey in your life at those peak moments, and when you were receptive and ready to hear it too, right? And then piquing your interest more, and then guiding you more over here, and more mentorship and more guidance and education, and it's kind of crazy how fast it evolves and happened too. And I'm sure your journey of where you thought you would be when you were 18, 20 years old, and where you are now, you could have never predicted the amazing success and where it's gotten you, and how you're helping people and all of that. And I think it's interesting, and some of it is just how the medical system in the United States is kind of challenging. It's really challenging even our area right now. I mean, we've all been through COVID, we've been through the lockdowns and the really huge evolution and change in how we communicate and how we do things. And healthcare took a pretty strong hit, and a lot of people left the area, left the profession, got burnt out, had a lot of problems. And what we're finding now is that there's a huge access to care issue. You try to call to get in with your typical doctor, or who you think your doctor is, and they might not even be there, or if they are there, it's okay, your appointment's in 3 to 6 months. And I think we're continuing to change, and I think consumers are starting to realize also that good health costs money, and it's an investment. It's an investment of time, energy, and finances. And I think the direct primary care model is really helping to fill the gap that people are finding and accessing care, and finding avenues to go to root cause medicine and really work on their foundations. And you kind of hit on that. Would you mind sort of telling us more about what is direct primary care? Because I think this is new for a lot of people, and how does that work? What do people do if they're interested in that? What does that look like?
Yeah. So like I had said, when I was in residency, it's like you see 15 minute, you have 15-minute slots all day long.
Okay. You're
seeing between, at the end of your residency, you're probably seeing around 20, but normal, like a lot of providers in the area see between 20 and 30. And
per day?
Per day. 20
to 30
people a day.
Patient cases per day.
And maybe even more, yeah.
Oh my God.
And the problem is that Medicare and insurance reimburse, less and less every year.
Okay.
And so then that provider has to see more patients in order to make the same amount of money.
Okay.
And so every year, and I think I've heard that there's going to be another Medicare cut, it's like that means the person has to see 2 or 3 more people in order to make the same amount of money. Okay. And so then eventually it's like, I mean, I don't know how many people you'd have to see in a day. Maybe AI will take over or something. I'm not sure.
No, that's been talked about. Unfortunately, I mean that's a real thing. They're testing it right now.
It is kind of scary.
Yeah.
But direct primary care. So I was in this model. I was seeing just patient after patient after patient. More worried about the billing than I was what the patient was, how the patient was doing. It didn't really even have long enough to really. I mean, it was like you had one problem, and I better. You better match the pill for that problem, because that's all the time that you really have.
Okay.
And so I like I had said, my mentor, Dr. Baker, I think he was becoming somewhat disenchanted with that whole system, and was really wanted to get out. And so midway through, I mean, he probably started a couple years before, but he started building a direct primary care outside of the residency, and was still teaching in the residency, but building this practice.
Yeah.
And I didn't really, it's so funny. I had a roommate in college who's actually a cardiologist now in Longview, and he was really into the concept of direct primary care. But I was way too far ahead for me. Yeah. But he was really into it, I remember, and so I'd kind of been vaguely familiar with the idea that it was membership based, and you had better access to your doctor and all this stuff. But then I spent 2 weeks with Dr. Baker, and the way that this system works is that. Instead of paying an insurance company, you get rid of the insurance company and you pay the doctor, and it's somewhat kind of like an insurance payment every month. Yeah. There's a membership fee, and then you have access to the doctor, and those whenever you need. And there's another well-known doctor in direct primary care named Dr. Roseborough. He's another mentor of mine. Yeah. And he like on his website, I think even says it's like having a doctor in the family, because you have really good access to the doctor. You have their phone number, you have their email, you can call. There's no phone trees.
Yeah, I don't do phone trees. Yeah, I hate them.
No, I know you don't. That's why I use
soapbox.
That was the first. That was like my first thing. I was like, oh my gosh, Coasters is awesome. There's no phone tree. I get a hold of somebody right away.
You can talk to a person. It's amazing.
Yeah. But anyway, so there's usually no phone tree. You just you essentially you can call my cell or my assistant's cell and get a hold of us. And I saw him doing this, and I just saw the amount of time that he was able to actually give patients.
Yeah.
Even though if it wasn't functional medicine, but it was the best of kind of traditional medicine. He would spend an hour with somebody. He would really listen.
Yeah.
He would do everything that he could to like help that person, and he had the time to do it. And so I knew. I knew that was exactly what I wanted. Was and I think most direct primary cares, not all, but like mine in particular, like they're about 10% of a normal panel for a physician. So a normal physician has 3,500 patients that they're dealing with, and so like there's actually another doctor in the area who just recently opened up a direct primary care, Kevin Herron, and he's right next to me in the office, and he was saying that like his last straw was he came home from a vacation. And he had like something crazy, like 400 messages to get to. Like he had to message back and respond to 400 different messages.
Through a typical medical
just missing a week. Just missing a week.
One week out.
And he was, it was like, he was like, it took me like 10 hours on top of my normal work in order to reply to all these messages.
Wow.
And it's because he has 3,500 patients. And direct primary care has somewhere between 3,500 and kind of a max of 600.
Okay.
And so you have a lot less
350 and 600?
Sorry, 350 and 600.
Okay.
350, 350 is about 10%, 600 is, a little less than 20%.
Yeah.
And, it's a manageable amount of patients that you can give really good care to.
Awesome. And so that's the focus then, right? And
yeah.
so
it's focused on the patient instead of all the billing and all the other messing with insurance and being on the phone trying to get things approved. Instead, it's just about the patient and the doctor, and how can the doctor best help the patient.
That's amazing. So what types of patients tend to really benefit from this type of model, and like talk a little bit about, if you would, that functional medicine, conventional medicine, like how do they meld? How does that look for a patient in their experience?
In direct primary care.
Yeah, in your practice. Yeah.
So for in my practice in particular, I have an initial visit that's an hour and 15 to an hour and 30 minutes.
Okay.
And it's 30 to 45 minutes of going over the person's history and getting to know them.
Yeah.
And to know
you actually
their
know your
family.
patient.
Yeah, really.
Oh my gosh.
Really, I mean, where are they from? What do they do? Like, what do they enjoy? And then all their health stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's about 30 to 45 minutes, kind of depending on the person, and then maybe even longer sometimes.
Yeah. Sure.
And then 30 to 45 minutes of just me going over nutrition and just the basics of like what it means to be healthy. And because I think so many people, they come to a functional medicine doctor, and I think a big issue with sometimes functional medicine is we do all this crazy testing and we do all these crazy interventions and we do all these IVs and all these
big
crazy
labs.
Big labs, and we come up with these crazy plans, but we don't start with like just the basics, which is like nutrition, like how does the person sleep, how do they exercise, how do they move, just moving their body in general, and then what they put in their mouth. And if that you have to get that right before you do all the other stuff, because getting this right a lot of issues will just melt away. And so I spend about 30 to 45 minutes doing that. Either me or my PA does that, kind of depending. And then I order a really comprehensive set of labs. Yeah. And then about 2 to 3 weeks later, we're supposed to have another visit where we go over all those labs and I explain to you what I think's going on and how do we get you to be the healthiest version of yourself.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's fun.
Yeah,
I enjoy my work.
Rewarding for you.
Yeah,
you've taken out the worst of what burnt out a lot of providers, and is burning out providers every single day in pharmacies and everybody, of dealing with the PBMs, the insurance side, the prior authorizations required, the barriers to care, right? Barriers to care. So when we were prepping for this, you intrigued me when we were talking on the phone. You promised me that you would get into it and you're going to share it. But you mentioned that there are 3 big things that you think people should be doing. Are you willing to share your top 3? Your secret sauce?
To me, it's 3 things that make a person healthy. I mean, I think there are probably more, but to me, there's like 3 big things.
Okay.
And one is like the food and the water that you put in your mouth.
Okay.
It needs to be clean. It needs to be healthy. It needs to be it needs to be your diet needs to be really nutrient dense. Like you got to get all your vitamins, minerals, and amino acids from your diet.
Okay.
You need that to detoxify on a regular basis, to run energetic systems, just to do everything in your body.
Yeah.
And I always say like a really healthy diet comes down to 3 things. It's you make your diet really nutrient dense. You get all your nutrients from your food.
Okay.
You remove the things that are irritating your system.
Okay.
So that's kind of like an.
And it's different for everybody, right?
Different for everybody. Everyone is a unique system, and some foods will do great with some people, and other foods will cause that person issue. And
Yeah.
so you figure out what is that for you.
Yeah.
And then the third element is to make energy. The whole point of eating and just disease in general is I see it on an energy spectrum.
Okay.
And so on one end you have alive and really well, and on the other end you have dead.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's zero energy. This is maximum energy, and all the diseases in between are some differential of energy.
Okay.
And so, as the job of the doctor, to me, is to how do I enhance the body's ability to produce energy? That's diet, that's maybe hormones, that's like vitamins, that's any number of things in order to maximize energy production.
Yeah.
And then what's inhibiting the body from making energy? Which is mold and other like kind of toxins in the environment that just drag the mitochondria down, drag the energetic systems of the body down, and decrease energy production. And so we want to get rid of those, and we want to enhance all that other stuff, all those things that enhance energy production. And diet, to me, is a big one when it comes to enhancing. And I use the analogy of like water in a car. Like you would never go to the gas station and put water in a car.
Right. No.
But and you wouldn't expect the car to drive if you put water in it. But
Right.
at the same time, we don't put what our body needs inside of it, and then we expect our body to function like perform like it should.
Yeah.
And it's an unrealistic expectation of the body. And so that's number one is putting healthy things in your body and trying to eliminate a lot of the crap that we put in our bodies.
Yeah.
And then the second one is movement. Obviously, movement is important. I don't think you need to run a marathon every day, but you need
Right.
to your body, you need to be active. And I think 10,000 steps a day. Like shooting for that, I try to shoot for that. So I bought a step tracker recently
Yeah.
because I found I was probably clinically inactive on days that I would work a lot. And so
right,
I'm trying to practice what I preach, and I try to get those 10,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
And I try to do like weightlifting or something like that, like
Right.
some form of more intense exercise a couple times a week. That's different for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of funny, like in college, like everyone was so like they were like into their plan, their program.
Right,
Like
right.
everyone tries to sell their program.
Counting
as like,
macros.
For weightlifting, it's like you do like the pyramidization or like there's so many different ways to do it.
Yeah.
And like to me, the most of it was just like doing something. So like if you just do something and you do it a lot and you do it really well consistently, like you're probably going to get 98% of the benefit.
Yeah.
And maybe 2% is in like how you.
Right.
I don't know how you essentially design it, but just doing something regularly. And then the last element, which is harder for people to wrap their minds around, but I do think is equally important, is the air that they breathe, and especially the air that they breathe inside their house.
Oh, okay.
And this is where mold comes into play. So houses are getting more airtight and more sealed and more just kind of just like stuck together tightly over the years. And so the air is really concentrated. So, and whatever is in the air is more concentrated. And so if you have mold or something like that behind a wall, and, mold produces mycotoxins. Mycotoxins, it's in the name, they're toxic.
Right.
Whether it's like zearalenone and it's disrupting your hormones, or it's gliotoxin or trichothecenes that are, damaging your mitochondria, damaging your gut, damaging your nervous system. If you're breathing those in, 12 times a minute, all day long, and you work from your house, and people don't leave their house all that often, and if they do, they go into their office, and it's the same
or another
problem.
closed building,
exactly.
or a store or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And we spend a lot of time indoors, and in that air that we breathe, if it's toxic, it's going to make you really ill. And so I was going to talk about this. So I was telling you that junior year of high school, I developed like a sudden onset like vision issue, and it was like it was either my junior or sophomore year of high school. It was about a year before we moved into this house.
Okay.
And I when I started my practice, actually here in Snohomish, about a year in, and actually it's funny, your daughter was like I think it was the first time she shadowed me.
Yeah.
Was when I got these labs back, and I was like, dude, what is going on with my body? These labs are like way worse. I'd never seen my labs quite like this. I was like,
really?
My liver enzymes had gone.
Wow.
But I was like, kind of like,
what's going on?
Something's really wrong. And I had gotten 5 or 6 sinus infections in a year.
Oh.
I had never had a sinus infection before in my entire life. And it's funny is I did a fair amount of mold medicine before that, but it was more like I had read the textbook, and I would follow the algorithm, and I did,
this equals this, this equals that,
and try to figure it out. But I'd never gone through it myself. And then all of a sudden I was like, it dawned on me that it was potentially like I was getting mold toxic, and so
oh my gosh.
I ordered the mold labs. I did the urine mycotoxins that I would do on my patients.
Yeah.
And I lit it up like a Christmas tree. And
oh my gosh.
It's funny. I always kind of wondered if that was my issue, but as a doctor, it's like hard to admit you have an issue.
Right.
And you're so busy like treating people that like you don't take care of yourself.
No, you're helping you're helping everybody else.
Yeah, everyone else
talked
except
about
you.
that.
It's kind of like a mom. Like moms
Yes,
help
moms.
everyone else.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like being a doctor is somewhat like
Right.
that. You help everyone else before you help yourself.
Right.
But I found out I had this issue, and so I start kind of like testing my environment, and I find out in my environment where where it was coming from. But I was like, you know what? A lot of my health issues started when we were in high school, about a year after we moved into this house.
Oh my gosh.
I wonder if my childhood house was like a problem.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
I have my mom, and you know, it's funny. So like my mom had so it was summertime, and they started. My parents started sleeping in my bedroom during the summer because it was super hot. And,
Oh,
and
yeah. And
I
your
was in the
room was
basement, and it was really cold.
Oh yeah, right.
So my mom has a retinal detachment, and I was like, you know what? I wonder if that room is like toxic. Like I wonder if my basement is like toxic, because I developed a lot of, like would never say I was unhealthy or unwell, but I developed some things that were not normal for a 17-year-old kid.
Right.
And
Especially
so,
vision things.
Yeah,
I mean,
vision things.
Yeah.
I mean, and some weird neurological things, and maybe some like energy things. You know, I was always pretty good, but it was a little bit suboptimal. And so I had my mom test that room, and really the house in general, and my room was like a bomb went off.
Oh my gosh.
It was extreme. It was extremely moldy. There was and we knew right before we had moved into the house that there was a leak, and supposedly they repaired it. But when they opened it up, they found out that it was not repaired at all, and that it was repaired poorly.
They covered it,
which is a problem. They probably sprayed it, and then they probably just covered it up, and it was just a moldy mess. And there was actually I don't know if it was related, but there was a and this is an area that I'm just beginning to explore, but there was a pipe, a sewage pipe that was actually leaking gases into my room.
Seriously?
And when they measured those gases, they were like, these are some of the most toxic gases we've ever measured. And so those were just like going into my room. My mom has this retinal detachment. She's sleeping in this room. My vision and my issues really started sleeping in this room, and so I tied it all back. And then since treating myself for the mold and really trying to clean up my environment, like I don't wear glasses anymore. You know, I mean, I was phasing out the glasses before that, but my vision has dramatically improved, and I'm pretty sure it was all, you know, it all dated back to that high school bedroom.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is kind of crazy.
And amazing that you've got the knowledge and the pathway and the experience that you've had so that you could get to resolution. And I mean, you're helping your life and your family's life, and then now, even in the community of Snohomish, like I see you every day incorporating this in. And for those of you who don't know where Snohomish is, we are in the greater Pacific Northwest, which is a beautiful area, near Seattle even. And one of the things that makes us so great and charming and amazing is our climate. We don't get 4 seasons. Unfortunately or fortunately, however, we do get a lot of rain, which makes us green all the time and beautiful and awesome. But
very humid.
And right now is extremely humid. Even like I'm feeling it every day. I'm like, I'm sticky. But I've always wondered, and I'm curious to pick your brain on this, because I'm like, we live in a wet area. It's got to be moldy here. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing these problems in patients?
We live in an exceptionally moldy area.
Yeah.
You know, Richie Shoemaker, who is one of the original kind of
Shoemaker.
doctors, in the mold world. You know, he did. I know that he's talked about this, but you know, they think between 60 and 80% of homes are moldy, or have some level of mold in them. In the whole United States, or specifically here in our wet area? You know, that's the whole United States. Whole United States. I think it's probably closer to 80% around here. I mean, it's pretty rare. Yeah. Like I would say, like when I have someone test their house, like probably 2 or 3 out of 20 are normal. Most houses 2 or 3 out of 20. Wow. So that's like 80-90% are going to be moldy. Yeah, I mean it's a very high percentage, and I probably have a little bit of a selection bias, because a lot of people are coming to me are not feeling well. And, they're seeking out this. True. Yeah, but I do think that it's a pretty serious problem. You know, humidity around here is somewhere around 65%. Mold loves 55 to 65%. Okay. And so, you know, I have dehumidifiers running in my house, and I check the humidity because I want to keep it between 35 and 45. That's 35 to 45. Okay. That's where mold doesn't necessarily grow. But I mean, you know, modern building materials are like sponges. Yeah. And you have this humidity, you have maybe a water leak that you couldn't even see, or your roof is leaking, you couldn't even see, or maybe you don't see it for 6 months.
Right.
I just had a patient who told me probably had a leak in her house for probably 3 or 4 months, and then they just found it, and they went and looked, and it was black mold just everywhere. And if you don't dry something within 48 hours of that leak or something happening, then mold is for sure going to grow. And then when you combine it with humidity between 55 and 65%, and it's just going to flourish. It's going to love it. It's going to love your house.
Let's just divide and conquer and take this over. We love this environment.
And the two molds that love growing in houses are Chaetomium and Stachybotrys.
Okay.
Which they produce a lot of mold toxins, trichothecenes in particular, that are super toxic.
Okay. And is this are these within those classes for our audience of those black molds and those really toxic molds that we tend to hear about in the news and things of that nature?
Yeah, those are the black molds.
Blacks and browns
that don't grow out in the environment. They grow in water damaged buildings pretty much.
Okay.
There's I think there's 6 molds that are really only found in houses, and so it's you try to find one of those, and if you find one of those molds, you know that there's probably some level of a problem in the house. But yeah, I mean, I think it's impacting just a really, really wide range of things. From like, you probably kind of find this interesting, but like a lot of men, they go on testosterone replacement therapy, like TRT is like kind of is booming. And I do think that there is definitely a time and a place for testosterone therapy, but the way that testosterone feedback works in the body is that your brain makes LH and FSH from your hypothalamus, which then goes to your gonads, or your ovaries, or even sometimes your adrenals in women, and that's what in women it's adrenals that drives testosterone production. In men it's obviously the testes, and then testosterone gets aromatized to estrogen, and that estrogen is what feedbacks on the brain to essentially shut off testosterone production. And so that's why they're like soy and like plastic water bottles and all these things are lowering testosterone because they are estrogen mimetics. They bind the estrogen receptor in the brain and they shut off testosterone production. And that's how Clomid works. So Clomid is that drug that can be used for, especially in young people, for TRT replacement because it'll block the estrogen receptors in the brain, and then it will allow essentially the body to resume normal testosterone production. But the problem is that you've got to figure out, like I think in everyone, you try to figure out what is driving, like what estrogen is in the body that is driving that negative feedback cycle to be turned on and shutting off normal testosterone production. And yes, I think the plastics and the environmental chemicals that all, they're all xenoestrogens. They're all very important. And I've been testing some people lately for these kind of environmental chemical panels, and I'm just like kind of shocked. Like I have some patients who really take really good care of themselves and are really diligent, and they're just loaded up the yin and the yang with these environmental chemicals.
Really?
Yeah, styrene and all these BPA, all these things are just like their urine is lighting up like a Christmas tree. So I think those are a real thing, but there's a mold toxin called zearalenone, which is a very potent estrogen mimetic, and so that feeds back on the brain and lowers testosterone production. And so I think we have like an epidemic of like low testosterone. And I do think the chemicals are playing a role, but I do think a big part of it is mold. And I think the job of any good functional medicine doctor is to figure out what source of estrogen in that person's body is driving that testosterone to be suppressed. And yes, you can treat them with testosterone while you're trying to figure this out, or Clomid or HCG or one of those medications. But ultimately, the job is to figure out why that is happening and to restore the body's ability to make testosterone naturally.
That makes a lot of sense, especially because in the pharmacy world, we're seeing younger and younger populations, and the diagnoses are really there, and the labs are supporting it. I mean, they have testosterone levels that are like, this is crazy.
Like 200.
Yeah, 1 or 200, like closer to female testosterone levels almost at times.
In their 20s.
Yes, right, exactly. And the huge impacts of chronic disease, even with having low testosterone. I mean, there's links in there with obesity and diabetes and cardiac issues, and and then again just how they feel, and ability to build muscle, and ability to have vitality, and sometimes drive, motivation, and then we get into even infertility or fertility issues in general with their partners, and how that impacts all of that. So
actually I had one of my more exciting cases recently. She's actually a wife of a friend, and they were really struggling with fertility for like 2 years. I think they did several rounds of IUI and all this stuff, and she came and saw me probably like 10 months ago, maybe like June or July, and she was just really struggling, and they didn't want to do IVF. She didn't want to go through. I think she had to do some. I'm not an expert on that stuff, but she didn't want to go through the whole process of IVF, and so with all the hormones and all that stuff. And so we started working with her. I found out she had a mold problem. They fixed the mold issue in their house.
Yeah.
And I started treating her internal system.
Yeah.
And then I think in December, we rechecked her urine mycotoxins and it was clean. Like there was nothing left. And then I don't know, 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, she told me she was pregnant. So
what?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It was one of the more rewarding experiences of my life for sure. Yeah.
Right. People go through a lot to get to that point, and for you to have uncovered the why behind it and help provide solutions that didn't involve the really.
Yeah. I mean, you want to get your body to do it. You want to get your body to do everything.
Right. Right.
And,
whether it be sports performance or your mind to be able to think clearly to do your work and excel or your hobbies or whatever it might be.
And there are cases where Western medicine and IVF and all that stuff are definitely needed. I mean, there are some circumstances where it's just you can't do it without it.
Right.
But with probably the majority of cases, there is some underlying thing, and it'd be great if you could figure out what that is, so that your body can clean it up and be healthy.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm excited about this. I want to know more. I think I'm going to be booking an appointment myself, but that's probably a good idea. Yeah, so, okay, we've talked a lot. We've gotten a lot of great information here, and I do know you use a lot of tools. You have a lot of tools in your toolbox, as I like to say. And so, if you were to uncover, let's say mold, that seems to be where we've talked a lot about, and you've got sounds like some really great ways of determining, yes, the answer is mold, and we have this. What are sort of the top areas that you then go to of tools of getting patients to an area that's not the problem anymore? Or anything you could share around that?
If mold isn't the problem?
Yeah, if mold is the problem, where do you start going? I mean, how do you?
Yeah.
I mean, you've probably got to deal with the environment somehow. What are the tools?
Yeah, I mean, the environment is important, so you want to figure out where in the environment is the exposure. It can be anywhere. Like I had a patient a little while ago who we were just racking our brain trying to figure out where she was exposed. Her house actually looked pretty good.
Okay.
Her school, I thought maybe, but then what we found out, it was actually her gymnastics. She was doing 3 hours of gymnastics 5 days a week, and the gymnastics gym was wet and probably had water seeping into a corner of the gymnasium, and that was her big exposure. So you want to try to figure out where the exposure is, and you want to either fix that exposure or try to stay away from it. But I think a lot of people, I think the one thing that's scary and hard about mold is that you feel like, oh my God, there's mold in my house. I need to burn it down, or I need to move, or I need to do something really crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds scary.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times it's not something actually scary. It's that your carpets haven't been cleaned, or your carpets got wet at one time and there's a mold in an area. So it's removing your carpets, or just getting your carpets cleaned by somebody like OxyClean, who uses kind of an enzyme or hydrogen, like a clean process, and the carpets dry really quickly.
Okay.
I like OxyClean because the carpets do dry pretty quickly.
That's
but cleaning the HVAC, making sure the HVAC is circulating clean air. It's a humid area. And so HVACs are, especially if you haven't cleaned it in the last 10 years, that can be a big source of mold. Then keeping the humidity down in your house, and then having a good HEPA filter. I like an Air Doctor, and I like Air Oasis. Those ones both move small enough particles to remove mold from the mold toxins from the air.
Okay.
And so there are some really basic things that you can do: reducing dust, cleaning your carpets, getting your HVAC cleaned, and then having some HEPA filters to filter out the air.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make an environment that wasn't that great pretty good that way.
Yeah.
Unless there's a huge problem, then you fix that. But for the most part, most people can make an environment a lot better with just some simple, opening up windows and doing just some of the really simple things. I think treating the internal environment, you probably have to see a doctor for that one.
I was going to say, come see you.
You have to see somebody.
Because it's probably really complex, right? It depends on the person.
Yeah, it's complex, and there's fungi, there's mold, there's yeast, and treating those is a little bit different, know, and so I mean it's a little bit, it gets complicated for sure. But I think a basic thing that a lot of people can do is sauna regularly.
Sauna, okay.
There was a study where they took people and they had them they measured their urine mycotoxins, or the toxins from mold in their urine, and then had them sauna, and then checked their mycotoxins later. And I don't quote me on this, but it was several fold increase of mold toxin excretion from their urine post sauna.
Really?
Sauna has also been shown to remove heavy metals through the sweat and different like environmental chemicals. So I think I sauna 7 days a week, maybe even 8 or 9 days a week. Or not 8 or 9 days a week, but 8 or 9 times a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll double up on Saturday or Sunday, but I for sure do it every day, or at least most days.
Yeah.
And you excrete a lot of potentially harmful things that you want to get out of your body just through sauna. I think sauna is just a really basic way, and most gyms have one. You don't have to buy your own sauna, but having access to one I think is really helpful. I think it's a big part of mold treatment to me, is trying to get to use one regularly. But yeah, finding a functional medicine doctor in that does mold is probably important.
Yeah, I think so too. Any last take homes or one last thing you might want to leave the audience with today that you think would be valuable? I know we've covered a lot.
Yeah,
so.
And we've gone into some areas that are like pretty deep, but I think that a lot of people, most people can get to a really good spot with just doing the basics well. Watching what they put in their mouth, trying to make their diet really nutrient dense, trying to get rid of the things that are irritating their system in their diet, and then building a diet in such a way that allows you to maximally make energy, and then moving your body regularly in whatever form of exercise that you like. And most people, if you just do those two really basic things, will get to a really good spot. And don't jump to the crazy things before you have honed that, because those two simple things can get you like a really long ways.
I agree.
And can get you from miserable to like pretty functional.
Yeah, I like you upgraded. I upgraded to higher tech health monitoring, and I'm still learning how to use it. Honestly, I'm a little bit technology old, evidently, as my daughter says. Gotten in the habit lately of our evening walk. I feel like an old lady at times because we gotta go for our evening walk. Walk the mama kind of thing. But it's amazing though, like just what that 30 minutes of intentional movement outside, rain, in the rain sometimes, but also sun, like it just reset your mind. It just gives you that clarity and that ability to relax and get out of your day-to-day heated moments of everything. So
I mean, you walk 20 minutes twice a day, and you'll get probably 5,000 to 7,000 steps, and you'll just feel a lot better, and your back will feel better, and your hips and knees, and your mind. And your mind. I think I just read a study too that even 10 minutes of walking after eating a meal and all the benefits that does to heart health and blood sugar levels and weight and mind and all that too. But 10 minutes, I think we better have 10 minutes after a meal, right? We try to do it after every dinner too.
So I know after this amazing interview, all of you are wondering, how do we learn more? What do we get to know about this? And so a reminder, this is Dr. Sam Lavis, and he has Functional Health Solutions here in Snohomish. His website is solutionsbydrsam.com. All put together, no periods, no dashes or anything else. You can also follow him on Instagram, Dr. Sam Lavis. And hopefully they don't blow up your contact information, because it was such amazing information today.
It was a pleasure. It was
thank
really
you.
Fun.
Thanks for doing it. I know that.
I'm sure we'll do it again.
I hope we do. Yeah, I think that'd be great. And I know we're going to have a lot more to talk about as well. So thank you so much. And listeners, so that is all for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe to our channel, give us a like, share it with your friends. Stay tuned for more insightful discussions on health and wellness. Until next time, take care.